Have you ever been at work and seen a brilliant, well-funded project just completely fizzle out? You're not alone. And the secret to why some things succeed and others fail often isn't about having the best tech or the biggest budget. Nope. It's about something much more fundamental, something that lives in the hallways and the meeting rooms. It's all about the organization's culture.
To really get why this is so important, let's start with a scene that might feel, well, a little too familiar for some of us. Okay, let's dive right in.
So picture this. Your company invests a ton of money, we're talking millions, in some state-of-the-art system that's supposed to make everyone's life easier. The launch is a huge deal, there's tons of training, but then, fast forward 6 months, and what do you hear? Crickets. Barely anyone is using it, and the whole amazing project just withered on the vine. So what on earth happened?
Well, a failure like that is usually just a symptom of a much deeper problem. And that problem is that knowledge gets trapped. It gets locked away inside different departments or teams, or sometimes even just in one person's head. A tech firm from our source material, let's call them Jade Inc., had this exact issue. All their expertise was isolated, creating these knowledge silos that just completely shut down any chance of real collaboration.
So if we want to break down these silos, we first have to get a handle on what we're actually trying to share. And believe me, it is so much more than just a bunch of numbers and reports.
This brings us to this whole field called knowledge management, or KM for short. And put simply, it's all about doing whatever it takes to get the absolute most out of your organization's collective brainpower. It's about making sure the right people have the right knowledge at exactly the right time. A really helpful way to think about this is like an ecosystem of insight. Right at the bottom, you've got data, just raw facts. When you add some context, that data turns into information. But the real prize, the thing we're all after, is knowledge. That's the actionable wisdom that answers the big questions. Why did this happen, and how can we make it happen again?
And this right here is probably the most crucial point. Knowledge comes in two main flavors. You've got explicit knowledge. Think of it like a packet of seeds with instructions on the back. It's the what, it's easy to write down, to package up, and share. But then you have tacit knowledge, and that is the expert gardener's skill. It's the how-to and the why. It's the intuition, the experience that's so hard to put into words, but it is the very thing that makes the whole garden flourish.
So, if that tacit, that how-to knowledge is where the real gold is, how in the world do we get it out of one person's head and make it useful for the entire organization?
Well, there's actually a model for this. It's called the SECI model, and it describes this really cool 4-stage cycle where knowledge is constantly evolving from a personal skill to a shared resource and then right back again. Let's take a look at how this awesome cycle actually plays out in a real office.
Okay, so it all kicks off with socialization. This is where that tacit knowledge gets shared directly, person to person. This is where every single person on a team gets to be both a mentor and a student, sharing that gardener's skill just by working alongside a colleague, watching them, and collaborating.
Next up is externalization, and let me tell you, this is the hardest step by far. This is where you try to take that unspoken, gut-feeling kind of know-how and turn it into something tangible, something you can share, like a report, or a diagram, or a best practices guide. You're basically making the invisible visible.
Now, once that knowledge is out in the open and written down, we can move to combination. This is where we start taking different pieces of that explicit knowledge, like all those different regional reports, and we synthesize them, we mash them together to create something totally new and way more powerful, like a big, comprehensive global strategy.
And finally, we have internalization. This is where you, as an individual contributor, take that knowledge from the manuals and reports and you master it through practice. It becomes your skill, your own personal, tacit knowledge. And just like that, you're ready to share it with someone else, and the whole cycle starts all over again.
But, and this is a big but, here's the catch. That beautiful, powerful knowledge cycle we just walked through, it can grind to a complete and total halt if the environment isn't right.
Because it really doesn't matter how great your process is or how fancy your technology is. Time and time again, research shows that the shared values, the beliefs, the behaviors of your organization, in other words, its culture, is the single most important factor, period.
Just how important is it? Well, the sources are crystal clear on this. Culture accounts for a staggering 80% of whether a knowledge management initiative will succeed or fail. It's not just a piece of the puzzle, it's practically the whole game. Now, what's really cool about this slide is you can use it like a quick diagnostic tool for your own team. Look at the cultural blockers on the left. Does that feel familiar? The knowledge is power hoarding, the lack of trust? Now look at the enablers on the right. Does leadership actually model sharing? Is it safe to ask questions and maybe even fail sometimes? Which column sounds more like your workplace?
So the million-dollar question is, how do you actually actively build a culture that lets knowledge flow freely? Well, let's get practical and look at a toolkit you can start using right away. Here it is, a 4-step roadmap for any manager or team lead. It all starts with leadership commitment. And I don't mean just sending a memo. I mean leaders actively modeling the behavior they want to see. That's what builds the trust you need. From there, you build psychological safety, you reward people for sharing, and you support those informal groups where so much of the real learning actually happens. And this right here shows just how simple it can be to get started. This little technique, called an after-action review, is a hands-on checklist you can use immediately. It's like a mini audit of your projects, and it creates a really simple, structured way to turn experience into learning. Seriously, you could use this in your very next meeting.
So when you boil it all down, the success of any new idea, any new system, any new strategy in your company comes down to one big question. Have you cultivated the fertile soil of a trusting, open culture where new knowledge can be planted, shared, and actually grow? Or are your best ideas being left to wither and die in a desert of information silos and fear? The choice is yours to make.